I'm Farai Chideya with NPR's News and Notes. We're giving you online coverage of the election. Senator Barack Obama has picked up the key state of Pennsylvania, plus a reliable favorite for the Democrats, New York. Of course, that's the stomping ground of Senator Hillary Clinton. We want to turn to one of our analysts, Harry Allen. He's one of our bloggers. You can find him online at harryallen.info. Harry, how are you doing?
I'm excellent, Farai. How are you?
Great. So what do you make of the return so far?
It's all very exciting and all very dynamic. You were just talking about Pennsylvania, and I was just looking at the returns on CBS, and it's just amazing. It looks like Obama may actually just trounce McCain in that state. It's all just it's really, I think the story of tonight is really just how energetic the voting is, not just in Pennsylvania but really nationwide.
There really have been projections that there could be around 130 million people who exercise their right to vote, including 30 million people who went out and stood in line in advance of Election Day. What does that say about the future of voting? Do you think it's going to change voting permanently?
Well, I think it says, first of all, that there was a tremendous amount of interest in this campaign, and that Barack Obama, whatever one thinks of him as a candidate or whether one voted for him or not, created an enormous vortex around himself. And I think even John McCain would have to admit that this was a very exciting candidate and an incredible challenge. And certainly the polls are demonstrating this. And I think people responded. But as far as the question of what next or what the future is going to be like, I think it really depends on what kind of candidates run in 4 years, and it really depends on how the election pans out in terms of how the votes are counted. If we have any, we've already heard in the early voting of many incidents spread here and there of miscounts or foul-ups or people having difficulty voting, or especially the long lines. It really depends on the degree to which this infrastructure, the voting infrastructure, gets sorted out. And, of course, there's been a lot of talk as well of the question of the federal government having more of a say or moving our country more to a more flat system.
Harry, I want to ask you just very briefly, how important was technology in this race?
I think it was important in terms of setting up the viability of the candidate, and it's been very important in terms of getting the word out. It wouldn't have been done otherwise. This is really a 21st century election.
Well, Harry, great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Farai.
All right, now we're going to turn to Edward O. Willis. He's president of a management and consulting firm in Arizona. He's also a Republican and a Vietnam veteran. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing just fine.
How are you feeling about how the election is playing out thus far?
Well, I've heard some of the early results, and of course, I'm not in a situation where I'm able to look at, what's going up on the screen. However, it's going to be a long evening. I think it's going to be a very close race at the end of the day.
You're at the McCain headquarters.
I'm at the McCain headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona.
What's the mood?
Oh, it's actually very positive. People are spirited. It's very loud. I had to find myself a spot where I could get some quiet time here. But the people seem to be upbeat, and everyone knew that it was going to be a tight race, and that it's going to be wee hours in the morning before we know where this thing is going to go.
We have many people on our show of different political persuasions, but one thing we found, which tracks nationally, was that some African-American Republicans were voting for Senator Obama, some African-American Republicans voting for Senator McCain, and a lot of the tracking seems to indicate that African-American Republicans were very split in their vote. What do you make of the future of the Republican Party in addressing the black community and trying to get more voters on board?
Well, I think, as all of us know, that African Americans, actually, when we're actually born Democrats. And I think it's something that over time, maturity, I wouldn't say not in a negative sense, but in terms of how your values change over in time determines how ultimately where you're going to be. I also believe that, most of Americans are, 80% of us are in the middle somewhere. And what happens is with the parties, you got the extremes. In the Democratic Party, you have the extreme left, and then the Republican Party, you have the extreme right. And those two ends tend to try to attempt to balance in their favor. So I think the success of both parties in terms of how they continue will be how well they can manage those extremes in the parties that they have.
Edward, thanks so much for coming on. We're going to have one more update tonight. We want you to keep tuning into NPRnewsandviews.org. That is the online engine of NPR's News and Notes.